still doing it today. I was afraid you were trying to close.
Yeah, it's recording.
Air
Okay.
conditioning
So we had, quick review of where we left off the other day since we didn't have class
Law of
yesterday.
diminishing marginal returns.
Yeah, we talked all about marginal physical productivity, average physical productivity.
Increasing any one input while all other inputs are constant will eventually lead to ... So we don't know what
One question, is the marginal physical product the same thing as the marginal product of
Of labor, yes.
and the same thing as marginal product of capital?
That is correct. It would just be which good are we talking about?
Yeah.
Absolutely, great question. So we talked about that probably being a good total physical productivity curve. Nice. And then from that, we could easily derive the marginal physical productivity. What is the marginal physical productivity in relation to that guy again?
quadrant.
Oh, you're right, that's a shape, and how is it related to this thing? Is the tangent or the derivative, right? And just the derivative of this is the marginal physical productivity, all correct. Okay. So the marginal physical productivity is generally going to be quadratic. How can I use this to derive the average physical productivity? No?
From the origin to
The slope
Yeah.
from the origin to that point, right? Because obviously the slope from here to here is just going to be the total physical productivity divided by the number of workers. That's going to have to be that. We'll put all those together, and I think we all agree we're going to have something like this. I want that to be the max of the APP. Did I do that well?
Peak was on the other side.
What's that? Oh, you want to PP on the other side?
Yes, switch the APP and the
Yeah.
APP.
Yeah,
Switch the, yeah, no, no.
I think, shouldn't the average one be on, like,
I think.
That was the one that was like last spot. Hey, Evan, do you mind switching that?
So do we want, okay, well, yeah, let's figure it out. So what would,
I guess that's correct.
yeah, so what's the argument for it being correct or incorrect? Did you have one, Andrew, or do you have a question?
Well, I mean, you can draw a line from the origin and just like start moving the point at which the line intersects the, I guess that line.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, like you're looking over here, I like it.
and you can compare it to the derivative at that point. Right?
So we to do these, yeah, I think this is helpful. Okay.
opposite.
And all, the slopes of those are what again? What are the slopes of things I just drew?
Average.
Those are the average. So what's gonna be true of the place where those are, where it's now tangent to the total physical productivity curve?
Where it's tangent, the marginal physical product?
Say it again? Say it again.
Marginal physical product?
Yeah, that's, means they're gonna have to equal there, right? Because remember, the slope of the tangent is the marginal physical productivity. So if I draw a line from the origin to that thing that's tangent to it, then they're gonna have to be the same. So at this point, MPP equals APP, good. But do we also know if that's going to happen at the max of either of them?
One.
Yeah, and it's gonna happen, why do you think it's APP, Tim? What if that graph wasn't there?
Well, because that's the top point that you can reach.
Okay, right.
From like the origin, kind of.
Everybody see that? As I go past this, right, 'cause remember, I'm gonna start to see, right, but at this point, my TTP is starting to do that. So what's gonna be true about a line from the origin is gonna have to be a smaller slope than the one that's tangent. You guys see that? So where these are equal is gonna have to be the maximum of the APP. Have I got that demonstrated here?
Yeah.
I think so. But there's still seeing this argument, like, well, maybe the MPP should, maybe they should be like the other side of the other one? Is that what you're saying?
I retract that argument.
Anybody want to keep that argument?
What do you mean the other side?
I think, it would, so you meant the other side, like, if that's the, oh, that's like this. Maybe, like that being another MPP proposal. Right, where both of those are intersecting the APP at its peak, but obviously they're different. Does anybody have a cogent explanation for why we should like one over the other?
Okay, so if you look at if you look at the S-shaped curve, or like, that, as you see, it quickly drops off. The immediate slope drops off much faster than the average slope would. So if you just, that's kind of a graphical way of thinking about it. But like you see, like it's kind of really sensitive. That's a little changes there. As with
Also just on the.
You're saying the MPP is more sensitive than the APP?
yes, at that point, yeah.
Okay, it has to help me explain which of these I would like.
So if it's more sensitive, it means it's going to go down quicker, which means that it's going to have a sharper cavity in this case. So at that point, that means that it would go in more so than the APP would.
Maybe, yeah.
It's
Like,
kind of
I
rough
guess
way.
if marginal is greater than average, then it would mean that the average would be increased by the marginal. And if the marginal is lower than average, then average would be lower.
Should we buy that, right? Like, that's gotta be true, right? Like the, the basketball height example. If the margin is above the average, what must the average be doing? Gotta be rising, right? If the margin below, it has to be falling. So which of those works, the solid one or the dashed one? MPP. It's solid one, right? Because here the MPP is above the average, and my average is increasing. To the right, the MPP is below the average, and the average is decreasing.
At your max point, that's where the MVP equals the APP.
Exactly, and that's where they're gonna be the same. Now start talking about why we care. The reason we care is very similar to the way that the last couple of weeks, we tried to figure out the optimal consumption bundle for a consumer. Now we're gonna start talking about, well, how do I find the optimal production bundle for a producer? In other words, how much labor they should hire, how much capital they should hire. Right now, we're still using kind of a short run scenario, where the only thing that's changed on this graph is obviously the labor. So we're gonna try to answer the question, how many workers should this firm hire to maximize profits, is our goal for producers. And so we need a new concept here. The new concept is marginal revenue product, or a marginal physical product is how much extra stuff I get when I hire a new worker. Marginal revenue product is how much more revenue I get when I hire a new worker. So do you see why that's just going to be MPP times the price of the good?
Wait, for what?
Sorry?
For what is that?
The marginal revenue product. So by definition, right, so what I'm trying to find out is how much more revenue do I get when I hire another worker? Well, I need to know two things now, right? What's one thing I need to know to answer that question? The question is, how much more revenue do I get when I hire another worker? What two things do I need to know to answer that question?
Well, you have to know the amount of stall.
No.
The amount, or like the amount of, the product that the person makes, like.
I need to know that, right?
You get?
I need to know how much he makes, again, like in our airplane example, I need to know, like when I add Dylan to the process, how many more airplanes do I get?
Right,
I've got to know the margin, and I know the price of that, whatever I can sell them.
right, so that way you have an amount of revenue.
Right. So when I just multiply these guys together, if Dylan makes 3 airplanes and I sell each one for $1 million, then hiring Dylan brought me $3 million of revenue. Is that okay? So let's say, what is the marginal revenue productivity curve going to look like? Right, so now I've still got labor here, but I want to graph marginal revenue product. What is its general shape going to be?
You're just multiplying the whole thing by a constant.
I think so, right?
It's gonna be a steeper.
So whatever MPP is multiplied by the constant P. So it's going to have the same general shape?
Prices.
Yeah, it'll still be a parabola, right? But it'll just be vertically stretched. Is that good with everybody? So MRP, same basic shape. It's literally derived from the marginal physical productivity, stretched by a factor of P. And notice it's kind of fun, right? Like we're going to do some of these with a spreadsheet and with some calculus and some Desmos. But if you notice, really, all I need to give you is the total physical productivity function. Everything we've talked about is just a derivative of that. You can find the marginal physical productivity, the average physical productivity, the marginal revenue productivity. Cindy,
What is the difference between marginal revenue product and marginal physical product?
marginal physical product is just how much stuff I get when I hire him. The marginal revenue productivity is how much revenue I get when I hire him.
Okay.
That's why I'm just multiplying the MPP by the price. Because while I care that I get 4 more paper airplanes, I probably care more
How much money that is?
exactly what they're worth to me. If I can only sell them for a penny, I'm probably not gonna hire Dylan if in an hour he makes 4 paper airplanes. I might, however, because the other piece I wanna factor in here is the wage that I pay the workers. Right, so we're making a couple of assumptions. One assumption that we're making is that all workers are identical, right? It was a little different from I think some of the things we were talking about with the paper airplane.
Right.
Right, but for now, we'll just assume all workers have the same skills. I also assume that I can pay them all the same wage, right? There's as many people as I want to hire at wage W. And that I can sell as much of my goods as I want at a price P. That called perfect competition. We're assuming we're in perfect competition right now. But if you watch, hopefully maybe started watching some of the future lectures or what this is on, Gruber talks about how this chunk is a little more complex than utility theory. Because in utility theory, we just had to look at the indifference curve and your budget constraint. But firms don't have like a budget constraint. Firms like don't have, oh, I've got $1 million to spend on making stuff. How much stuff, right? They have this extra layer, which is what is the price of the thing that what do they get to sell their thing for? Which is what industrial organization is all about, but that's kind of the next chunk of this course. Right now, we'll assume you can sell as many paper airplanes as you want at the given price. And I can buy as many workers as I want at that given price. So if you have this graph, can you determine how many workers you should hire?
Until the wage is equal to.
Until the wage is equal?
No. Oh, sorry.
No, so that one?
I think
Andrew, different idea?
the point at the very top.
Oh, the point at the top, right? That looks like it, right? I mean, I love maximizing. So we got 3 different options here. Evan, do you have a different one?
No, but doesn't B give you the most money?
Tell me why.
Because you hire more workers and there's like a difference in the workers between C and B, and like you just have more workers giving you more money than you pay them.
Can you prove to me that this worker is worth hiring? Let's say it's
Yeah.
L star. Why would I want to hire L star?
Because he's giving you more money than W.
Yeah, you definitely can.
Everybody see that?
Making profit.
Remember, this curve, that's our marginal revenue productivity. So it tells me if I hire this worker, he's going to add this much revenue to my firm. Well, what do I have to pay him? I have to pay him W. So I do want to hire that guy. This, like the person at C, I think I would say, I like the person at C the most.
Yeah.
Meaning, they're bringing me the most profit.
This means
Right? I love this guy, but these guys are also bringing me profit.
Mhm.
So I'm still going to hire them. What about point A?
You're making 0.
No?
Not zero. So that's the point in which like,
you start
Yeah,
to
just
make.
Kind of. How much profit am I making at point A?
It's same
It's
as the
the same
nothing
as W,
saying.
so no.
You're not breaking even.
I'm not breaking even.
You're losing.
I'm losing money.
Yeah.
Because remember, you're at the edge of
Okay.
the curve, right? Like this guy here,
yes.
he brings me that much, I have to pay him W.
Well, I
Right.
thought,
This is kind of like if the first worker in my airplane, he's not very efficient at all. But I have to have him to get the second one, so I can start the specialization, division of labor, then I've got to hire, he's really not that good, but by the time I get to 3 people, now they're, now they're cooking, it's gonna go up.
the question is, where does that start? Where does your rattle up? Like, it's gonna,
Well, yeah, you probably, I mean,
like,
0, I mean, with no workers, you can get no
yeah.
stuff.
So
that
the
would
next
be
thing
the-
about is like area. You want to maximize the total positive area.
Well, no, here, I just want to get a point of intersection.
Well, yeah, but that's going to maximize the total positive. You say like the positive area is the one above the W, is like the area above the W line. Because that's like,
You could,
yeah, it's just another way. of
you
thinking
could, yeah, there's, yeah, we'll get to that. But this would be the profit minimizing point, right? You don't want that, right? This would like you stop just when people starting to be good. At this point, that should be the profit maximizing point. And remember, I don't want to hire this next person.
Because that's when you start losing.
Yeah, because he's only bringing me
Less
$4
than-
and I got to pay him $5. I'm telling that guy to go home. I love this guy, he's like my favorite worker, but all the guys, well, not all the guys, but these guys after him are still gonna bring me something.
The L star point is like where, you know, when we were making the favorite airplanes when like Larry and
Yep.
Shigard run the group? But
Yep.
why would you wanna wait all the way till L star and not just at C?
Oh,
You still have the ability to leave.
right, because this guy's gonna cost me $5 to hire, but he's gonna bring me $9 in revenue.
Okay.
So that's good, right? So that, I'm gonna get $4 from that. And same way, this person, if I hire this person, he brings me $7 revenue, which is better than 5. That person brings me 6, which is better than 5. Once I get here, they added $5 of revenue to my company and I paid them $5, so, I mean, I'll hire them because I'm nice, I guess, but I don't really care. Is that good? So the big point is that obviously your optimal input quantity is always gonna be when the marginal revenue productivity equals the price of the input. Here we're talking about labor, so it's marginal revenue productivity labor, equaling the wage. If we're talking capital, it would be when the marginal revenue productivity capital equals the rent paid on capital. Doesn't matter what that is, just whatever that input happens to be. Pretty good, that's a big one, that's a fun. Well, we'll get to the calculus shortly, that's pretty easy. Yep. Now we're just making a really tiny shift, but it's an easy shift. So we're talking about total physical productivity, average physical productivity, marginal physical productivity. But we also want to talk about cost curves. And we usually talk about cost curves more often than we'll talk about productivity curves.
What's that thing that they were saying?
Isoquants.
Isoquant.
Isoquants, exactly. The production is the same. So a cost curve can just be derived from the corresponding product curves, okay? Because so take a total cost curve. Total cost curve is the total amount of money that you are going to pay, right? But now, the easy way to keep them separated is what's on the horizontal axis. Labor is on the horizontal axis for productivity curves. But quantity of output is on the horizontal axis for cost curves. Because cost is a per unit idea, right? Like per paper airplane, what does it cost me? For workers, it's a productivity idea. Per worker, how much do they produce? What do you think is going to be true about a total cost curve as you increase your output?
The average would increase.
The average would decrease always?
But not, it might come up, maybe, I'm not sure. But like, it's, because when you get more, when the laborers become more efficient, I guess the average cost decreases.
Okay, you jump by that? Alright, so we'll jump to average cost. In those initial points, should average cost go down? I think so, because remember initially, workers are becoming more productive. Remember, I pay them all the same wage. So if I pay them all the same wage, and they're becoming more productive, then my average cost of production should go down. But eventually, what do we know is gonna happen?
It'll stop.
Stop, right? Eventually, I'm adding my 100th worker here. I've still gotta pay him $10 an hour, but he hardly gives me anything. In other words, now I'm in this portion of the marginal physical productivity. So add those together, what is the average cost curve gonna have to look like? It's gonna be an upside down parabola now, right? But no, it's right, it's really just kind of like an inverse of the average productivity. Because the average cost just comes from whatever I've gotta pay the worker.
Is it actually exactly the inverse or no?
Not exactly, it's right on the
You're saying
function,
like-
right, yeah, I don't mean right now. So the average cost curve is gonna be a U-shape, or an upside down parabola. How about the, go ahead.
Or, sorry, I said it has the same basic shape, but it's just a U-shape in this instant, not always a U-shape.
No, it'll always be U-shape.
Oh, it's always a U-shape.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. How about the marginal cost curve? What general shape should that have? Similar? Pretty similar, right? Because the same reason, marginal cost, marginal productivity.
That's the average of
In fact, and mathematically, it's gotta be the same too, right?
Right.
Does that look good? Does that have to be true?
When marginal is lower, then the average is decreasing, when marginal is higher, the average is.
Same argument, right? The marginal cost is above the average is falling. the marginal cost is above the average is rising, so they've got to intersect at the minimum of the average cost. Francesca, you're so patient.
Does TC stand for total cost?
Yes, I haven't gotten there yet because we got off track, but yes.
Also, can I ask why the axis is total cost and quantity? Like, I understand quantity, but why total cost if you're graphing marginal cost?
Agreed, right, just because I've been lax in my, we're gonna put all those up there. And really, like, that's really just dollars up there, and I'm gonna put all three of these curves on the same graph.
Yeah, it's not like, it's obviously not like your average cost and marginal cost are in terms of like some total cost.
Exactly, right, yeah, it's not like, right, it's just like the number of things that I make.
Yeah,
The average cost per airplane produced, the marginal cost per airplane produced. The next airplane, what does it cost me to make? General shape of the total cost curve,
Wait, is the
Isn't
marginal
it the
cost going
line?
through the center?
line.
Don't you hire more workers, but you like pay them all the same
Oh.
amount?
Oh, great point, I do, but remember, if I had labor here, you understand what, yeah, I mean, I've just got a great point. If labor was still on this axis and I wanted to graph the total cost curve, what would it look like? A straight line with what slope? The wage, right? It'd be a straight line with this, with that guy. But remember, I don't have L here, I have Q.
How much it costs you to make
But isn't
each?
it quantity?
Oh,
Right?
You with me, right? It's this kind of weird transition. But if I know this is gonna happen, well, will total cost always increase? How about that one? We'll have positive first
It
derivative.
should be S-shaped again.
It's gonna kind of be still S-shaped, right? It's still always gonna increase, right?
Yeah.
The only way to make more stuff is to, gotta pay more to make it, right? But do we like,
I feel like it's gonna be like this, not like,
not the same S shape, but,
not the same as, it's gonna be increasing initially more, like steeper, then it starts to like, it's obviously increasing the entire time, it's less steep and eventually more steep. Exactly,
Wait,
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so, right?
Or which one?
So yeah, so this is a nice total cost curve.
Cause your initial stuff like costs you much more to make because your workers are garbage, and then like, as your worker, and then the productivity is less. Then as you get more, they start to get into their,
And remember, you just gotta think remember the average cost is still the same thing, right? The average cost is the slope from here to a point on there, as it's decreasing and then it's increasing.
right.
Marginal cost is the derivative, same thing, decreasing and then increasing. And I kinda like that this is gonna get really steep here as well. Right, because remember, this means like, I'm hiring that 100th worker. They're hardly gonna add anything. So what's my marginal cost per unit gonna be? It's gonna be huge. Right, I may have to add workers 100 to 200 to get one more airplane. That's gonna be an incredibly expensive airplane. Francesca?
I have two mini questions.
Yes.
One, is the marginal cost going through the vertex?
Absolutely,
That-
yep, has to, yep.
And then my other question is, when you say quantity on the x-axis,
Yes.
what is the quantity?
Quantity of whatever this good is I'm producing.
Wait, so not labor.
Not labor, exactly, not, absolutely not labor. Quantity produced, so in our case, airplanes.
So still it's the antiderivative of your,
Total cost would be the antiderivative of marginal cost.
Yeah.
Yep, totally. Right, and that's why I said, and if you know, we'll do that eventually, we'll take this U-shaped function, parabola, take its antiderivative and derive the total cost function. Absolutely.
wouldn't it be easier to just start with the total cost? Like,
Typically,
if
yeah.
you think about it, it's so much easier to do
Yeah.
that first.
Yeah, I feel the same way, like all I've gotta do, but notice not even that, really, all we start is with the total physical productivity function.
Right.
And then we can even, we drive the total cost function from that too, right? Like, it's crazy, how all of this comes from that one function. Just knowing that total physical productivity function, which is kind of what we did with the airplane example. Like, once I know that, I can derive everything else.
Is your total cost curve like is it like a mirror? Is it like reflected across y equals x kind of?
I think it's gonna depend on the function.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I don't think I can always make that.
But like relatively, it's always going to be true.
So it's gonna reverse
Like
us.
it's always.
Yeah, right, it's always gonna have that kind of general
Shape.
difference, yeah, definitely. But because we know we want these things to look like that. And again, all because of the law of diminishing marginal returns. And initially the specialization of division of labor, right? Those are two big theories that we have that drive all of this. Related concept here, but total fixed cost. So we're going to talk about this yet, remember we had fixed costs and variable costs? Like fixed cost is the rent that I pay on the building. Right? The rent that I pay on Amos. My variable cost here was hiring you guys to build my airplanes. Well, if I wanted to graph total fixed cost as a function of the quantity produced, what's that going to look like? Horizontal line, right? Remember, that's the key. The fixed cost, I don't pay more rent because I made 1,000 airplanes.
Right.
I pay the same rent whether I made 0 airplanes or 1,000,000 airplanes. So the total fixed cost curve is going to look like that. Did I agree with everybody?
Yeah.
How about the average fixed cost curve? What's that going to look like? Yeah, right? That's just going to look like that and be asymptotic to the horizontal axis. So if I make 1 billion airplanes, my average fixed cost is 1 billion divided by my rent. So that will definitely approach 0. And this is arguably another one of the reasons that initially average costs are going to decline when I talk about total costs. Really our argument so far is, I didn't say it, but we're really kind of just stressing total variable costs because there's just the labor. But when you add in this fixed cost idea, that's another reason why average is going to fall initially. Because you're spreading your fixed costs out over more input.
Wait, and what are the 2 lines on there?
So this is the total, great question. That's the total fixed cost, and that's the average fixed cost. But eventually, still, like the diminishing marginal returns are going to kick in. And that's going to be asymptotic to 0 anyway. Eventually, that's not really going to matter anymore, right? Once I'm making a bunch of stuff.
Your variable cost matters much more.
Exactly, my variable costs will become much more
Also, your
important.
total cost, like you said, that's your total variable cost, but if you were just factoring the fixed cost, all you just bump that up.
Exactly, right? That's just a vertical
Which
shift.
doesn't matter.
Right? Yeah, in a sense, it really doesn't matter. Excellent point. We are cruising. Anyway, so what we already said. Average cost curve is U-shaped, it slopes down because of the spreading of the fixed costs and increasing marginal physical productivity, meaning the second guy, they can specialize now. They're even better. So those factors make it slope down at first, but eventually it's got to slope back up. I'm adding my 101st worker to this tiny cramped room with 1 marker. U-shaped cost curve. Nice. Oh, perfect. You might even leave early. Like, I never do that.
No.
Okay, well,
Maybe erase that.
So slightly different concept here. Scale of production. This is a long-run concept where I can change everything. So nothing is fixed anymore. All my inputs are variable. So kind of a totally different idea. And there's 3 possibilities. Increasing returns to scale.
What does that mean?
That means if I double my inputs, my production does what, do you think? If I have increasing returns to scale. It more than double.
Okay.
That increasing returns. So if I have some firm, where if I double all of my inputs, and the output I get back more than doubles, by definition, increasing returns to scale. Scale meaning like scaling up, right? Like making it bigger.
So in the horizontal would be when it doubles, it also doubles.
Right. Constant returns to scale means I double all my inputs, I double my output. Decreasing returns to scale would be I double all of my inputs, and I less than double my output. And this just depends on whatever industry we're talking about.
Right.
Some tend to be increasing returns to scale, some are decreasing returns to scale. And we'll do some good math with this once we get a Gruber next week.
Yeah.
Long run average cost curve.
Uh,
Long run average cost.
So this is all.
Obviously, this is all short run, right? You know it's short run because we only have labor changing.
And all the other things are constrained.
Exactly, right. Everything else is constant. Typically, we're just, on the 2 goods.
Well,
That means capital is
So you're
constant.
bringing some multiple dimensions, because in real life, you have, even in short term, you have more than just labor as a, that you can think then variable in short term. How would that affect like the overall like shape of the MPP and?
Oh, great question. So
So let's say you add like, in addition to labor, you also add like capital. Yeah.
yeah, it's still going to be U-shaped, and then that's why I'm saying next week we didn't know the Gruber piece, because we're going to start taking these functions, right? So the preview is from here, right? And again, so this is pretty much all graphical, right? We've done no calculus at all. It's good, right? You can get the general idea, you see what's going on. But next week, I'm gonna give you quantity as a function of capital and labor. Right, so now we might have like root K plus root L is the quantity that you can produce. Well, the price of the good and the prices of capital and labor, and we'll verify that there's, that as I add more labor, I get more output. As I add more labor, the addition to output decreases. Again, we're really off doing the exact same calculus analysis that we did with utility, just talking about production. So we'll crank that out, and then like I said, and then it'll be easier to see like all these little subtle points, because we'll be able to prove it.
With utility, it was like curve to constant, with the difference curves is curve to constant utility, would be curve to constant quantity in this case?
Yeah, like that's what
That's real.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's the isoquant that I was talking about before.
Okay.
Like in difference curve, every point on there gives you the same utility. An isoquant, right, so that's what we'll start doing next week.
Everyone on
Right, we'll have bundles of capital and labor. And the isoquant's gonna be, every point on here produces the same quantity. And obviously we're gonna need to figure out, given the prices of capital and labor, what are I'm gonna do? Well, I'm gonna find a place for the tangent. I'm gonna set what's called the marginal rate of technical substitution, equal to the ratio of prices of capital and labor, and surprise, surprise, I'll find the tangent. Like, we're literally gonna do the exact same thing. Just different words and different philosophical backgrounds. It is kind of cool, right? I mean, it's kind of amazing how it's really the same mathematical technique that we do in both sections. And that's why I'm glad we spent so much time the last couple of weeks kind of, hammering that and doing Desmos with it and really looking at it carefully. Because it's almost like the core mathematical concept for all of microecon.
Aren't you allowed to pick which isoquant you're on though? Isn't that what makes it like a harder problem than?
Yeah, right, yeah, meaning, and that's what's gonna factor into what's called the industrial organization piece of it.
So are there discrete isoquants?
Oh yeah, in the same way, right?
Yeah.
Because then this one's gonna be a higher output level.
No, but like you said, you could pick the, so as with utility curves, it was the one that was tangent. So there's only, so in other words, is there multiple combinations or is there only one isoquant that fits the constraints that you have?
I'd say there's still only one.
Yeah,
place
yeah.
You have to, it's the same kind of curve in different places, if you put that.
But usually it's more like, I wanna sell this like I wanna produce that quantity. Is usually more the concept that you want. And then you gotta figure out what mix of goods
We'll give you that.
will get rid of, right? Because there's multiple mixes that I can create.
Quick question,
Yes.
back to your slide there.
Yeah.
What, so you said in this is short term because
Yes.
labor is the only variable, what else is a variable in there?
Everything. Right, because in the long run, everything has to be variable.
Like what?
To say capital and labor.
But it's more than
Basically,
that.
like for any input, right? Like for St. Andrews, it's utilities and faculty and food, and like any input in the production of that, all gotta be variable in the long run. Wow, yeah.
So we just, for simplification, place we just make a capital and labor.
Yes, exactly, right?
But like I realize, like as you said, like in Drift's curve, it's like multiple dimensions, and this, so this is just.
And obviously, we're just doing the abstraction to two inputs of capital and labor, because this allows us to understand what's happening. And then adding more, we just go to a different dimension, the math's a little harder, but there's nothing new. That makes sense? So we don't have class tomorrow, right, so we don't need to worry about the SAT. And when we get back together, we'll start adding calculus to this. It's gonna be awesome. Have a great weekend, everybody. Good luck on your SAT if you're doing it. Oh, yeah, sorry, and if you want, some of these, here we go.
I'm so salty about this.
Yeah, you might want to look at these.
Are you serious? I didn't know. I got more points off on this singular one than I have on the other one.